Let's get some legal expertise on this before we bring in the panel. We've got Nima Rahmani, who's a former federal prosecutor with us. He's the president of the West Coast Trial Lawyers. Thank you for being with us. When I listened to Jonathan Mitchell today, Trump's lawyer was clearly trying to steer the justices as far away from the events of January 6th as he could. Did he succeed?
I think he did, Christian. And really, it was just until Justin Jackson's last questions about the insurrection. And, you know, you saw the justices focused on the procedure. Does it require an act of Congress? Is the president an officer? And it's really not a question of if Trump is going to win, but how he's going to win and by how much. And I fully expect either a unanimous or even an 8-1 court to rule in Trump's favor, probably on those procedural grounds, not substantive.
It's interesting that Donald Trump was not in court today. He was going back and forth on whether he should be there. And it's also interesting how much attention this case got on the American networks. How important, how unprecedented is what is unfolding in the Supreme Court right now?
Well, it is really unprecedented. This law or this amendment hasn't been litigated like this since the Civil War. And I think Trump's lawyers did a good job keeping Trump outside of the courtroom. They knew they had the upper hand and they had many paths to victory. And Trump's presence there would probably just be a distraction and make a already politicized argument even more political.
Is the court an impartial arbiter in this? Because, of course, we have someone in the court, in Justice Clarence Thomas, whose wife was actually involved in the affairs of January 6th. It's become very political, the court. I was just asking Gary how much of a challenge it is for the Chief Justice. Do you think they're on a hiding to nothing here, the court, in whatever decision they come to?
Well, Christian, I agree with Gary, and there are certain justices like Justice Thomas, of course, and you're referencing Ginny Thomas and her social media activity and activity with respect to these alternate electors. That's a problem. But you also have Justice Alito. But I think the remaining justices, including Justice Roberts, of course, they care about the legacy of the court and its impression that it's become politicized. So if they can find some narrow way to get Trump on the ballot without addressing the merits of whether January 6th was an insurrection and whether Donald Trump engaged in it, I think that's going to be their preferred majority opinion. And I wouldn't be surprised if many of the liberals joined it as well.
So there he is, just reacting to that. And Nima Rahmani, who's still with us, former federal prosecutor, he's talking about the distinction and the way he behaved when these documents were found, and comparing it to the way in which Donald Trump reacted. What is the difference from a legal standpoint?
Well, the two legal differences are, of course, Trump is a current president and he can't be prosecuted. But it's really his cooperation with the National Archives. Let's not forget, Donald Trump was asked very politely for more than a year to return the documents. And the archives said that if he did not do so, he would be reported to the Department of Justice, which is exactly what happened. And of course, when the Department of Justice issued a subpoena, Donald Trump didn't fully comply with it, requiring the execution of a search warrant. So it's really the compliance with the law that satisfies that willfulness requirement for Donald Trump, but not so much for President Biden.